Amen. Amen.
So I will try to take about 45 minutes so that we allow about 15 minutes of discussion. Ways of dealing with the matter. And he has his own ways of directing you so that you may not be, strictly speaking, clear where you'll be in 20, 30 years. And that's a very, very important thing to be aware about. But maybe we should, first of all, define what we are talking about, so that we do not use terms that people are not clear about. The first thing I want you to understand is, we discuss adaptability quotient. In your career journey, we are narrowing ourselves from a wider subject of adaptability generally. If you don't have adaptability, there'll be trouble. It is adopt or die is a choice of any professional or business. If you can adapt, you will certainly die. When you were in high school, late 1960s and early 70s, when you were in the high school, one of the best paying job was to be a secretary, typing, stenographing, whatever. Because they did a 1 year course and ended up earning much more than primary school teachers who did a 2 year course. It was well done. But as computers started coming in 1980s, we reached a level where very few people can be employed for typing because everybody types on themselves. By the time I retired, every manager have their own computer. They are communicating with one another. So what does the secretary do? Many of them were fired, and the few that remained became administrators rather than typists. Can you imagine if you are not adapting, what will happen? As you remember, being the area manager for Kisumu in 1980s, and I talked with my secretary, the one who typed for me. I told her, if I were you, I would try to do something else beyond this secretarial job. She said, no. I went to college to study secretarial. I do not want to do other things. I said, if you can do secretarial, there are many other things you can do. The person resisted. I did not, of course, it had nothing to do with me. I'm thinking about her and her future. One day, our cashier was going to be away. And I said, why can't you try? He said, I fear money. I can't add up. I said, you can do it. Although she was not reporting to me, she was reporting to somebody else who was reporting to me. As part of my mentoring, I entered into the cash office with her, and we started receiving money and setting it apart, helping her to see. Even me, I've never been a cashier, but you see, we can do it. After some time, she realized it's not a difficult thing. So now, whenever the cashier was not available, the secretary could become a cashier. After I left Kisumu, I became the distribution manager. So the depots were still reporting to me. And we needed to reduce manpower, especially because the pipeline was extended to Kisumu and the old company depots were no longer needed. So therefore, depot staff, since we are closing the depot staff have to go, and now we move with a small unit, with a small component of staff to work from the pipeline depot. Guess what happened? Obviously, one of the jobs you are sure to go is the secretary's job. But you can't do away with the cashier's job. Because the cashier still has to handle the money, even if you are in another depot. And that's how my friend Margaret ended up not losing her job. Many years later, I would go to Kisumu and smile when I remember how much I needed to persuade her to be there. Now she was enjoying her job. She did her job right up until her children were educated. When I would go and say, hey, now my daughter is in medical school, And I remembered that ability, resistance to adapt, and the benefits of adulting. But that she is not the only story we have. We have the story of Kodak. Kodak was a big name in the 60s, 70s, was the biggest photo company. And then, somewhere in the 80s, the digital era started coming in. Kodak continued with its printed photographs, cameras and printed photographs. But once the digital era came, people started now taking photographs without using cameras. And then I can send Uganda my photographs without needing to print them. Now, many people do not anymore keep albums, physical albums. Now they use photo albums. Now you can hardly hear of Kodak. It's one of the biggest companies in Kenya. Actually, internationally, it doesn't exist. What happened? When change came, it was not able to adapt or resisted adapting. In the process, it lost out and died. The same things are happening about consumers abandoning in-stores purchases, because now they can do cyber shopping and things will be delivered. The same thing with the convenience of streaming for films. We no longer now go to cinemas. How many cinemas are in Nairobi and idle? Not even that. When my children were younger, I used to belong to a Christian video library so that they can watch the videos. Now that may not be necessary. So the video libraries and things like that are in trouble. And the same thing about the functionality of smartphone. It's completely replaced the computer, and that can be quite an issue. It is the adaptability of these companies that put them out of business or were able to continue in business. Let me just stop there a little and refer to Acts chapter 13, verse 36. Is a career summary of a king called David. And the passage says, now, when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep, he was with his ancestors, and his body decayed. Do you see what we are talking about? David was one of the people that was able to adapt quite a bit. Samuel anoints him king, but Saul doesn't want him to come in. He has to go running from place to place as a fugitive for 14 years. But he adapted to it. Finally, he becomes king. He adapts to it. Then Absalom, his son, wants to overthrow him. He leaves Jerusalem and says, if God is going to be with me and wants to bring me back, he can. But let's not destroy Jerusalem. David had the ability to adapt almost to any change that came. And because of that ability to adapt, he ended up becoming the greatest king that Israel has ever had. What do I think helped David to be somebody who could easily adapt? It is right in this verse. Now, when David had served God's purpose, are you getting it? David was not serving Jesse's purpose. Because after Jesse dies, he may feel lost. David was not serving his own personal purpose. He was not just fulfilling his own interests. He was fulfilling the reason for which he was born. According to the summary in the book of Acts, is that David was involved in serving God's purpose. Do you want to be somebody who can very easily adapt to anything? Please understand what God's purpose for your life is. Once it's very clear what God's purpose for your life is, you will do many things that will help you to actually fulfill God's purpose. I have written a book called Discovering Your Life's Purpose. And I keep saying, your life's purpose is your calling, why you are created. If you know your purpose, you can fulfill your purpose in different ways. For example, if your purpose is to alleviate human suffering, you feel you are created to alleviate God's human suffering. That's God's purpose for your life. Do you know you can achieve it in many ways? You can become a doctor and so deal with the pain from diseases. You can become a social worker and help reorganize people so that they come out from poverty. You can become an economist, empower people who are poor. All of that will be removing people from pain. And yet you are doing different things. So once your vision and purpose is clear, you can keep changing the way to do it, and you'll still be within your purpose. That's why you start understanding that many careers can fulfill the same purpose. So the thing you stick with is your purpose. Then you can change careers. Every 10 years, you can do a different career. As long as the career is helping you to fulfill your purpose, you can keep changing it. The same thing with career. So purpose is more important than career, because you can keep changing careers. Number two, jobs are not as important as careers. Within the same job, you can be in this employment, you can be in this other employment, then you can also employ yourself within the same career. So you need to start not tying yourself to a job. Oh, I'm employed by Shell, I can't do anything else. That Shell is not the only way for me to fulfill my purpose. Many years ago, I retired. I'm still working within my purpose. And if you want to know my purpose, I would encourage you to go to my website and check it, because I've written it there. My website goes by my name, www.johnganga.org. You'll see I'm fulfilling it even after retirement, because you do not have to do the same job all the time to fulfill God's purpose. So the most important thing is to understand that David could change things he was doing and still be fulfilling God's purpose. And that was important. Number two, he understood his purpose to be within his generation. And that will be very, very important. In other words, there are things you'll do when your generation is young. There are things you'll do when your generation is older, but you are still serving your generation, which is an important thing to have. And of course, number three, in the points I'm giving, is that he knew he had a sell-by date. He fell asleep. And that is something you need to be aware. You have not agreed with God whether you are going to die at the age of 40 or 60 or 80 or 100. It means that you work, you need to look for anything that can help you to fulfill your purpose, even if that may need changing your job. And that will be something that is very important to be aware of. But what is AQ? The dictionary says that it is the ability to adjust cost, or adjust product, or adjust service, or adjust strategy. So when you say you have adaptability quotient that is high, it means you can very easily change course or product. You don't find it difficult to actually change. All of that in anticipation or in response to unanticipated changes in the market. So when things change, you are not just changing for the sake of it. You are changing because the circumstances are rendering your way you have been doing things redundant. So you change. So adaptability quotient is a metric or a measure of adaptability, most used to measure performance in the workforce and assess any person's potential. Because if you employ somebody, like that CEO told me in 1979, who cannot do anything other than just be a business analyst, within no time, you will not have a place to promote him. Because the higher you go, the less specialized you become. Because when you're operations manager, you'll be in charge of this and this and this. I had 4 departmental managers working under me before I retired. And they all do different things. So you cannot, even if you got your promotion through one department, when you become the divisional head, obviously you have to be the manager of other people whom in places which you have never done, where you have not even been trained. Adaptability is the ability to learn quickly and be able to handle something which you never handled before. Essentially, quotient is an abstract concept that measures the extent to which someone is able to adapt. But that's really what we are talking about today. Adaptability is from the Latin adapto, which in English means fit to, adjust. And it's a feature of many processes. You know, the word has been put to use as a special term in different disciplines and business variations. According to Andresen and Grono, adaptability is a field in the organizational management that can generally be seen as ability to change. Either you are changing something, or you are changing yourself, or that in order to fit to occurring changes. In ecology, adaptability has been described as the ability to fit or adjust to unexpected disturbances in the environment. So we are therefore saying adaptability is a soft skill. Now we now need to talk about soft skill and hard skill. If you're employed as an accountant, adding and subtracting, that is the technical skill for which you're employed. But to do the job of an accountant, you need to know how to talk to people. You need to know how to talk to the bank manager. All that requires a soft skill. And the more senior you become, the less you depend on your hard skill, and the more you depend on your soft skills. You must learn of necessity how to rest upon your own judgment in order as you become senior. You know, why do you need this thing we are calling adaptability? I think it's because change is the only constant you expect today in the world. We could ask a question, but what is changing? I've already referred to several. You know, there's something called digital revolution. Digital revolution means you are having to learn. You even use a mobile. The next one you buy, you are back to being a student. One of the critical measures, if you want to measure whether you are adaptable, it is your ability to learn. Your ability to learn new things. If you resist and stay with your old mobile, you don't have adaptability. In the process, you'll continue using a mobile that is taking you hours to achieve something, when others are using mobiles with high speeds that are working within minutes. So you'll be slower and less productive because you are unable to adapt, or because of the digital revolution. So the other day, a young man told me that, hey, Mr. Nganga, you are a BC. I said, what do you mean by BC? You are the generation of before computers. I said, I agree. I'm BC. So what are you? I say, we are a DC. What does that mean? Digital citizens of computer. And I said, wow, for sure I am BC, born before computers. And these are indigenous to computers. In other words, they are born with it, they have grown with it. But so we require more in the digital revolution. I have had a time than many of you, but all of us have to adapt. What about another one? Advances in medicine. All of a sudden, people are living to 100, 120. People used to die after retirement, 70 something, they are all gone. Now, we have to learn and adapt to living long lives. What about increase in human knowledge? There's so much information. What has changed in the ways we do things? Many things. But what is bad about it is that they are not predictable. As we are talking now, some young man is busy coming up with a new software. Then you bring it to the market. And once it is achieving a purpose and assisting in a certain way, we'll have to learn. So it means that although lawyers are the ones who call themselves learned friends, anybody who wants to advance must become a learned person, learning continuously, because you cannot predict, you cannot prepare in advance for the changes that are likely to happen. You know, in the last two decades, there are many things I could mention. Let me just list a few. The world now has the largest generation of young people. In the human history, there has never been such a proportion of young people. Another one, the proportion of people living in extreme poverty has been nearly reduced by half. There are less number of people that are extremely poor. Another one, in the last 20 years, the world's population has grown from about 6 billion to now we are over 7 billion. Another one, The population is growing slowly. You people are getting married and having only 2 children. Now, earlier, it was, unless you had a problem, you wanted 5, 6, 10 was quite okay. Now, so in the process, our population growth has just reduced. We have to learn that some schools will become idle. Because if you are having less and less children, you need schools that can easily be turned into poultry farming. All because of the changes that are coming. You have to learn to adapt. And during COVID, a lot of schools, private schools, learned that. And we could go on. Contraceptive use has increased. Maternal deaths have fallen. So most children, we are getting less children born, but they are living to adulthood. And around the world, life expectancy has increased. But there has been significant increase in major curable and transmitted infections. More children are attending school than ever. The world is increasingly becoming urban. More of us are now in town. And more people are migrating than ever before. In other words, most of people in the generation I can see in front of me are not going to work all their years in Kenya. They'll move everywhere. And we have just seen that you'll get the world order record numbers of people who are going to be displaced by conflict and violence. We could go on. So the thing I want you to understand is that change is constant and will continue being constant. You must not try. When I joined Shell, there used to be something called a career path. You start with your supervisor, and he told you if you perform well, you move from this job. You have these alternatives. If you take this one, you will end up here. But if you take this one, you will end here. And we'll draw your plan. It was called a career path. All the way to becoming the CEO. It was discussed with young graduates. Now you can't do that. You have no idea. And anyway, young graduates are not lasting in their jobs at all anyway. So it needs to be understood that careers are no longer permanent and pensionable. Things have actually changed. Because of the changes that are there, all employers are now holding as important AQ. So as they are interviewing you, they want to find out, are you adaptable? If you are adaptable, you'll be a more valuable employee because the changes in the organization are continuous. The customers are asking for different things. So they do not want to employ a person who cannot be versatile. Number 2, if you are adaptable, you become a better leader. And I'll come back to that. If you're adaptable, you'll be a better equipped person who can face the changing types of challenges. But most important, if you're adaptable, you'll be happy. People that are stuck and fixed are not flexible. Every time there's a change, they feel uncomfortable, they can't sleep, they are depressed. But somebody who is ready for change means the change comes and says, bring it on. He is happy that he's doing something new. Because right from the beginning, his mental attitude is ready for change. So he lives a happier life. But what is career adaptability? In a nutshell, career adaptability is the ability for an individual to cope with current and future tasks. What you are doing now and anything you could do in future. Ability to face in transitions. You have been a student, becoming employed, and there's a lot of tamarking or job hunting. There are people who can't cope when things change. Number 3, ability to cope with challenges. All coming as you grow in your career. Ability to successfully adapt to changes in the values of the jigsaw puzzle that is life. The ability to successfully adapt to changes in the work environment. All that is what we are talking about when we are asking, does this guy have career adaptability? How do you deal with the changing circumstances? Let me give you a 3-step process. Number 1, see it. Part of the problems people have, like now the lady I was talking to in the 1980s in Kisumu, is I could see possibility of changes. She couldn't. So the first thing is the ability to scan the environment you're operating and accept that things are likely to change. That's the most important thing. Many people that are adaptable is because of that ability. Evaluating what's causing the need for change. And once you can see it, you start thinking, yeah, I can change to be like that. I can tackle that. Acknowledge change is needed and see it. If you see it before anybody else, you are likely to be more adaptable than the other people. Because when it finally happens, others are in shock. You knew, you could see it coming. Step number 2. Once you can see the changes are going to come, own it. Take ownership of the situation. Don't fight the change. Once you have assessed it must happen, own it. It's natural that many people tend to resist change. If that's what you are doing, you are hitting against a rock. Assess whether this change is for real, number 1. A change whether it will be useful, number 2. Assess whether you must be involved in it, number 3. Once the answer to those questions is yes, own it up. Agree that this is my change, and you start working with it without passing back. Oh, no, they did. Oh, what happened? You now own it up. You don't pass the back to anybody else. And that will allow you to go to stage 3, which is solve the problem. Deal with the challenge. Develop your action plan of how you are going to adapt from the way you have been doing things to the way you are going to do things. From the kind of product you have been producing to the product that now the customers require. From the strategy you are using before to the new strategy that you have to use. When identifying possible solutions to adoption, it will require asking one question. What else can I do? How can I deal with it? How can I do something different? This one question is disruptive in nature, because it means I stop doing what I've been doing and start doing something new. You know, you need to test yourself. And instead of testing how to take information in IQ test, AQ will help to test how you can manipulate information given a constraint in order to achieve the goal without the circumstances that originally existed. The second trick is to assess adaptability of founders to look for signs of unlearning. One of the things that makes you not adaptable is this is the way we have always done things. You don't want to learn something new because this is the way we do things. Oh, you know, I'm a Kikuyu. This is the way we do things. Oh, you know, Luos. Don't you know we come from UK? This is how we do things in UK, United Kisumu. Now, the moment you are tied to your history, you cannot become adaptable. You need to unlearn what you learned. You are taught by your parents the Kikuyus are dangerous. Now, you meet them and you have to work with them. Learn to know the real Kikuyus. When I was at Alliance, one of my classmates told me they were told he was a lawyer, told me they were told, you are going to Kikuyu. When you hear Kikuyu say, Nengo Kohora, please take off. Now, he ended up to be my friends, and we are friends up to today. We are now retirees, pensioners, and we are friends. But that's what had been put in his mind. We could not become friends without him unlearning what he learned. So many people that are adaptable unlearn what they learned at the beginning and start accepting the new circumstances, the new people, the new product. It's very important. So do not be tied up to history. History can influence your future, but cannot determine it. It is you to check, can you adapt to the new things or not? And that will be something important. I have mentioned that AQ needs soft skills. Maybe I use a different example of a carpenter. Might be a hard skill for a carpenter is the ability to operate a power saw or even use framing squares. That's what you go to a polytechnic to train in. But the same carpenter who is an expert in making tables also requires soft skills. For example, how does he communicate to the co-workers? How does he convince a customer to buy the chair? That's not a hard skill. That's a soft skill. And adaptability is a soft skill. Is a wanting to adapt is not a hard skill, it's a soft one. Soft skills are different from hard skills, which are directly relevant to the job. They are often more quantifiable. Hard skills are quantifiable and easier to learn. Soft skills are not easy. They are not written in a book which you read. You have to learn how to react as things change. Other soft skills are like your personality, your attitude, your flexibility, your motivation. All those are soft skills. Let me now talk about the soft skills that a person who has a high AQ, that is able to adapt easily. What do they have? They are team players. This means not only being cooperative, but also displaying strong leadership skills when necessary. You know, if you are going to be the same team with me, 3 things will be required. Number 1, you must respect me. And yet earlier, you did not think much of me. But now that you are going to work together, you must respect me. Number 2, to become a team player, you must allow me to do some of the things you thought you are the only one who can do. So you have to adapt to that. Number 3, for you to be a team player, you must agree with me where we are going. We can't go in the same team without a common vision. That will require that. So when you say you have a high adaptability skill, it means you are a team player. Number 2, you have high flexibility. This is extremely valuable asset in any employee that you are going to employ. Those who can adapt to any situation are dependable, because you send him to Kisumu, like the way Shell sent me to be a manager in Kisumu. Whatever changes come, I'll adapt to them and still get success. I'll be able to use different strategies to achieve the purpose for which I was sent to work there. But the most important thing in adaptability is effective communication skill. It's paramount. Communication involves articulating oneself well. How will you be able to help people, the team, to articulate with you and move to a new way, unless you can explain yourself to them? But most importantly, you must be a good listener. Hear what people are saying and communicate also with your body language. Next, an adaptable person is good at problem-solving skills and resourcefulness. No matter what their profession, it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or an accountant. This is problem-solving. It's a problem-solving. So if you're not good at problem-solving, you will not be easily adaptable, because any new problem which you have never solved before, you will be stuck. But problem-solving and resourcefulness is something that is seen in people who are adaptable. But very critical is ability to receive feedback. If you are so sure of yourself, that's where confidence can give you trouble. You are so confident on your way that when somebody tells you that way will get you lost. Things have changed. No. I am sure about this. Accepting feedback is something that makes you adaptable. Not only accepting feedback gracefully, but also applying that feedback will foster your professional growth. So you hear, I tell you, oh, what you did was not right. No, I'm sure. No, you will not be helped. Adaptable people are good listeners, I said earlier, and they accept feedback. Obviously, they have confidence. Just I said, confidence is important. But it's also important to have knowledge and skills to support this self-assurance. That's why you are needing feedback. By confident and capable, your supervisor, employees, and others will believe what you are doing. But for that to happen, you have to be somebody who listens. But then, since the changes are coming and they are new, you need creative thinking. We call it thinking on your legs. Ability to see something and have a new look at it. You have always seen it like this, but because of the changes, you see it differently. So you have a new perspective. And that in the process, you are able to respond quickly to changing ideas. When new ideas come, you're able to assess them. New responsibilities. You don't just say, oh, no, me, I can only be a teacher. The teacher can be a headmaster. The headmaster can be an education officer. All those who require different changing skills, but you can accept different responsibilities. You can also change your expectations. You can also be able to go with the trends and strategies and other processes that are required at work. Being adaptable also means possessing other soft skills and interpersonal skills, creative thinking, and all that. And I want now to, and I'm going towards finishing. I've taken 35 minutes. I don't think I'll be able to deal with this subject high enough, but I want to say people with high adaptability quotient have something we call capacity, achievement, and relation. I call it CAR. C-A-R. C-A-R stands for things you require for you to be adaptable and therefore rise in the career ladder. What do we mean by capacity? And we don't have capacity at the same level. But if you don't have this high level capacity, it will limit you in your adaptability and ability to move up your career ladder. This person with high capacity is a creative thinker. He generates meaningful and long-term vision, even with complex and uncertain systems. He doesn't have to have all the data to think about the future. He can very easily describe how things will be into the future because he is creative. Number two, he translates this vision in his mind into a coherent action plan. Because without a plan of action, how will you reach your vision? But this is creative, can see it in his vision, but then he can write down something somebody else can follow. Then number three, he knows how to make sound decisions about critical issues in a very uncertain environment. And he has an ability to scan the environment and demonstrate a comprehensive understanding of the strategic issues affecting organization. You know, if you are a creative, you have high capacity. For example, when I used to do interviews for Shell, I would ask you, assume you be the president appoints you as the Minister of Transport. Define the job of Minister of Transport and tell me how you do things differently. You know, somebody will tell you in the interview just about road transport because that's how narrow he is. He is not creative enough to understand the word transport. It's not about road transport. There's road, there's air, there's water, there's rail. My friend, there's even donkey and horses. Now, but you give me a long lecture about one small aspect, tells me you have no capacity to think. You do your capacity, and that will make it very difficult for you to be an adaptive leader, or because you don't have that creativity. The ability of having what we call a helicopter view. You see the details, and yet you see the wider circle. It's something you need to develop. Because if you develop, when the problem comes, you don't act in the same way. You know, they say people without high capacity to think, and they have a hammer, everything becomes a nail. You know, see, a hammer is for nailing. So every time he sees something, mwah, because that's all he can think of. He doesn't think of, you know, if I ask you, I have a rope. How many uses can you do to the rope? If you don't have this capacity to think, you're a creative thinker. I ask you, what's a rope for? Oh, for tying a donkey. I agree, it is true. Give me 20 different ways of using a rope. Creative people will give you 20 different ways. They can see the rope as a snake, which their children could play with, as a snake. You know, the boy moves it like a snake, the sister runs away. So it's a toy. They could see the rope as something that is for carrying kuni from the forest. They could see the thing as tied up into a ball, and the boys would play football with the rope. That's what we call creative thinking. Ability to see more than is obvious. And anybody who wants to be a creative, adaptive person must have this capacity. That's for C in the car. A is for achievement drive. Achievement drive. Something in them never gives up. Even if you have capacity and you don't have resilience, you give up very easily, you will not tackle the challenges that are coming. Some are huge. You need the A for achievement, drive, motivation. And that's what we call self-motivation. You don't require an outsider to motivate you. Once you are clear what your vision is, you go to it. And to you, there is no barrier that will stop you going where you are going. You can go over the barrier, you can go under the barrier, or you go through the barrier. Now, that's what employers are looking for. People who don't find an excuse and then quickly, oh, sir, it cannot be done. Why? I don't have a pencil. Surely, what a pencil can do, a pen could do. But you have to have a creative mind to start seeing what can be done. If you don't have a pen, you don't have a pencil, you can write on your computer. So you could still produce a report without a pen or a pencil. Now, that ability is in, but how with that capacity? Drive. You now, because the drive is driving you, you think of alternatives. You know, people with this or result orientation, they don't give up. I used to tell my children when they were young, when you begin reading a book, don't stop in the middle. Finish the book to the end. How do you know the interesting chapter is not ahead? People who give up very easily cannot be adaptable. They can't go very far. You need people who they do, and I told them, the reason many people give up is because they start something without proper analysis. The book, every book, and I've written many books, there is always a table of content. There is a summary of the book at the back. Why can't you read it until you tell yourself, am I really interested in the information? If I am, even if the writer is boring, you will read it to the end because you're interested in this. So you must have the ability, if you are result-oriented, you like to see results, so you don't give up easily. Set short-term goals and work hard to achieve them. Manage your own work. You know, become positive about change, and I've talked about that quite a bit. People with result orientation, even if something changes, they still want to achieve their purpose. They are keen to enhance skills and knowledge. So they look for any skills. They even go for courses in order to get the skill to achieve what they are trying to achieve. And they are able to set new direction because they are driven. They still want to reach where they set out to go, and they might have to use a different direction. They prioritize activities and projects. They don't just work. They work smart. So you give priority of the activities so that you do the most important activity first. And they focus on key activities. Test and underlying assumptions. They never accept something on face value. They always test. Why am I doing this? Why is this important to do? They test underlying assumptions. Finally, in the car, they not only have this creative thinking, they not only have this drive of never giving up, they also have relational skills, the ability to influence others. My friend, you can have capacity, you can also have this drive, but if you don't know how to deal with the people, you cannot become an adaptive leader, and you'll not become a leader anyway. You will not go very far in your career. You need, and unfortunately it's not taught in school. You are supposed to have learned it from your parents, from how you dealt with your sisters, and your brothers. But you need it if you are going to go places in a changing environment. Because if you have this skill, you'll be able to lead complex groups of people. In other words, you don't look for leading people who are Maasais like you. For you, you can be in a team where you are the only Maasai and you are quite at home because you don't see people by their tribes. The teams can be varied, but you're able to work with them. That is a person who will be adaptable. He also has ability to inspire the team. He has something about the way he says things, the way he does things, that helps to inspire others. If you are going to deal with challenges facing you, adaptability, what we are talking about, is ability to inspire others. And of course, that inspiring comes with the better communication. I've talked about that. And ability to unite people. Some people are divisive. They're always creating division. You can't help with the changing. The more things change, the more you require each other. The more you need to unite people. And you must creating a learning culture in everybody. You yourself admit you don't know. Allow your subordinates to teach you. And in the process, as they teach you, you also can teach them. And so you have a continuous learning culture. Those are the three things that you require if you want to win. But they all come from the important thing of knowing I can learn. You know, when I started my first graduation, it was not mine, in 1974, Jomo Kenyatta used to be the chancellor those days. I was surprised when he told the people graduating, I give you power to read. So I asked, power to read? Surely they have graduated. Wamemaliza masomo. So why are you giving them power to read? So somebody told me, the reason they are given power to read is because when you are doing your first degree, you are learning how to learn. Once you have the first degree, it qualifies you to start becoming a learner. So for the rest of your life, you are learning. You can see I left university 40-something years ago. I'm still learning. I do consultancy work, and I'm given tasks, which some of them I'm not sure. I have to go and learn. My friend, it will be important for you to accept you can learn anything. That the first degree should not jail you to a certain way of doing things. I still remember doing a career day in Kenyatta University. That must be in the 1990s. And somebody asked me, when we were dividing up to various career groups, said, you know me, I'm doing mathematics or something, but I'm really interested in communication. He said, okay, I joined the group. I said, yes. And I now, because of that question, I told everyone, don't necessarily go to a career related with what you are studying. Go to a career of your calling, what you feel interested in. Don't worry that you have not studied it. Just go there. So he actually went to the group of communication people. The person leading was a classmate, my classmate at Alliance, who had now become the director of FIBA Radio. He was the one talking to them. And he was also asked the same question. He said, when I'm looking for people, and was looking for some employees for Baraka FM in Mombasa, I do not look at what they studied as much as do they have the skill? Do they have the ability? So come, once you finish your course, come, I'll interview you. He was interviewed and was accepted in Baraka FM. From Baraka, he did another Christian session in Nairobi. Then after that, I think he was in Standard or Nation Radio. He is now a well-known communication expert in Kenya. We all started in Kenyatta when he asked me, can he get involved in something he was not trained in? So the critical thing is not what you trained in. The critical thing is interest and giftings. Learning is continuous. I still remember when I was at Alliance, our history teacher said that, who was 45, and my friend, when you are only 20 years old, you think 45 is very old. So we thought our teacher was very old. At the age of 45, he said he was resigning to go to university to study law. Do you know that's what he did? At the age of 45, he went back to Britain, studied, and became a lawyer. So all I'm saying is, the critical thing is, be sure about your vision, where you are going. Once you are sure about that, the way you approach it can change with the time. And especially these days when university is teaching in the evenings, you can still continue doing the job you are doing, and you are learning a new skill, and then move and change your skill, as long as the skill takes you to the direction of your calling. I think that will be very, very important. Unfortunately, my time is up. I had said 45 minutes. I've taken 49 minutes. The notes will be given to you. I wanted to cover other issues, but you will see them in the notes. So, however, as I finish, please, when you get the notes, go through the assessment tool so that you know whether you are adaptable or not. The questions that are listed, you can either answer them as never, seldom, regular, frequent. The greater the score, the more adaptable you are. What are the questions? I think about new and different ways I can accomplish my goal. Be honest, because obviously, if you don't answer them wrongly, it will not help you. Number 2, I challenge myself to question what I presume to know. Do you do that? It feels like a waste of time. I'm able to shift gears with minimal complaints. Is that true of you? My core values are clear to me and to my colleagues and members. Is that true? I can readily imagine new uses for old ideas. Is that true? My habit is to reach for help and acknowledge the assistance. Do you normally go for help, or you like to say, I made it alone, nobody helped me? I like to experiment with the new ideas. I never fall in love with my wins and proactively seek out the next challenge. In other words, you are continuously, don't feel I have arrived. You don't have an arrival mentality. You are willing to achieve more and more and more. My failures present opportunity for innovation. Do you look at failure positively? Do that and score yourself, and then on the basis of the score, you can say, the guy with the 10 to 20 is saying, since you cannot adapt and changes are coming, please retire. If you get 21 to that, we are saying, it is okay, you are not totally lost, but you need help. If you get that 1 to 40, we are saying, you're on your way to being adaptable, you have not achieved it yet. But if you get 41 to 45, you are the right candidate, you are adaptable. And I have suggested several things you could do immediately in order to help you to become somebody who is adaptable. Time for questions. The meeting is back to Ogada.
Thank you so much. What a greater gift can we get from our senior?